Have you ever wondered why some people with high intelligence still lose control of their lives, while others, quiet, calm, and often underestimated, seem to move through the world untouched by chaos? Why knowledge alone doesn't protect you from manipulation, exhaustion, or regret? And why being smart has never guaranteed power? Most people grow up believing intelligence is the final weapon. Study hard, learn more, collect information. But the truth is harsh and rarely spoken. Intelligence without awareness is fragile. Intelligence without control is easily exploited. And intelligence without discipline becomes a liability instead of an advantage. This is the uncomfortable reality that few are willing to face. The world does not reward intelligence the way you were taught. It rewards perception. It rewards emotional control. It rewards those who understand how human behavior really works. Many brilliant minds fail because they assume logic rules society. It doesn't. Emotion does. Ego does. Fear does. And unless you understand this, no amount of intelligence will save you. Look around. You will see people who know less than you, think less deeply than you, yet somehow command respect, influence decisions, and stay protected in situations where others fall apart. They are not lucky. They are not gifted. They are calibrated. They understand when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to wait, when to show warmth and when to show distance. That is the difference. Being dangerously smart is not about knowing everything. It is about seeing everything. It is about understanding patterns before others even sense them. It is about recognizing emotional traps before you step into them. And most importantly, it is about mastering yourself before trying to master the world. Society trains people to be agreeable, expressive, and open. From a young age, you are rewarded for sharing, explaining, and proving yourself. But in reality, this conditioning makes you predictable. And predictability is weakness. When others can read you easily, they can guide you easily. When your emotions are visible, your leverage disappears. The dangerously smart person moves differently. They don't rush to react. They don't rush to explain. They don't chase validation. They observe first. They process quietly. They understand that every reaction reveals something, and every word gives away power. This is not arrogance. This is self-respect. Here is the truth: most people never hear the world is not fair, and it never was. It is not designed to protect the honest, the kind, or the intelligent. It is designed to test awareness. Those who fail the test become exhausted, confused, and bitter. Those who pass become calm, grounded, and untouchable. That is why these lessons are called ruthless. Not because they promote cruelty, but because they remove illusions. They strip away the lies that keep people stuck. They force you to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And once you see clearly, you cannot be controlled the same way again. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. Clear about people's motives. Clear about your boundaries. Clear about when to give and when to pull back. Clear about where your energy goes. Clarity is power, and power begins internally. If you've ever felt misunderstood, drained, or used despite your intelligence, it was never because you weren't smart enough. It was because no one taught you how the game is actually played. You were taught rules, not reality. You were taught morality, not psychology. And that gap is where most people lose. But awareness changes everything. Once you understand how humans think, how fear drives behavior, and how emotion overrides logic, you stop taking things personally. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop trying to win approval. And in that moment, you gain something rare: control. By the end of this video, you won't just think differently. You'll move differently. You'll speak differently. You'll feel steadier under pressure. And most importantly, you'll recognize situations that once trapped you before they ever form. That is the reward for staying until the end. Not motivation, not hype, but a mindset that makes you quietly powerful in a world full of noise. Once awareness awakens, the first battlefield you must win is internal. Not against other people, not against circumstances, but against your own impulses. Most people are controlled long before anyone else touches them. They are ruled by emotion, urgency, and the need to react. This is where the first ruthless lesson begins. Emotions feel powerful, but they are not commands. They are signals. Anger tells you something was crossed. Fear tells you something is uncertain. Excitement tells you something feels promising. But none of these feelings are instructions. The moment you obey emotion without thinking, you surrender control. You hand the steering wheel to instinct, and instinct is easy to manipulate. Dangerously smart people feel emotions deeply, but they don't act immediately. They create space between feeling and action. That pause, sometimes only a few seconds, is where power lives. In that space they choose, and choice is what separates strength from chaos. When others explode, they observe. When others rush, they slow down. That contrast alone gives them advantage. Most people don't pause because pausing feels uncomfortable. Silence feels weak to them. Stillness feels like losing. But in reality, the person who reacts first usually loses. Reaction reveals insecurity. Reaction gives information. Reaction shows your emotional pressure points. When you react, you expose yourself. This leads to the second lesson. Most people don't think, they react. They mistake speed for intelligence. They mistake loudness for confidence. But reacting is the lowest form of control. Anyone can react. It requires no discipline, no awareness, no strength. True intelligence is restraint. When you stop reacting, something interesting happens. You start seeing patterns. You notice how people repeat themselves, how they reveal their intentions through tone, timing, and body language. You notice who pressures you, who rushes you, who benefits from your emotional response. This awareness doesn't come from reading books. It comes from stillness. The world is full of emotional traps, urgent demands, provocative words, manufactured crises. They are designed to pull you out of your center. The moment you feel rushed, offended, or pressured, that is the moment someone else is trying to gain leverage. The dangerously smart person recognizes this instantly and does nothing. And that nothing is not passive, it is strategic. Silence is the third lesson, and it is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. Most people speak to relieve tension. They explain to feel safe. They fill silence because it makes them uncomfortable. But silence creates tension in others. Silence invites mistakes. Silence forces people to reveal more than they intended. When you speak less, your words gain weight. When you stop explaining yourself, people project their own assumptions onto you. And projection is information. It shows you how others think, what they fear, and what they expect. The dangerously smart person listens more than they speak, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are gathering leverage. Silence also protects you. Every word you speak can be used, twisted, or remembered. The fewer words you give, the fewer weapons others have. This does not mean becoming distant or cold. It means being selective, speaking with intention instead of impulse. Self-control is the foundation of all intelligence. Without it, knowledge is wasted. Without it, potential leaks away through emotional reactions, over-explaining, and unnecessary conflict. With it, even average ability becomes powerful. When you master your mind, the world feels slower. Situations that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself. You stop chasing approval. You realize that calmness unsettles people more than aggression ever could. This is not about dominance. It is about stability. A stable mind cannot be easily manipulated. A controlled emotional state cannot be hijacked. And once you reach that level of internal control, you become unpredictable in the best way possible. Most people are readable. You can see their mood, their intentions, their insecurities within minutes. That is why they are easy to influence. But when you master your reactions, when your emotions stop spilling outward, you become difficult to read. And what cannot be read cannot be easily controlled. This is where dangerous intelligence begins, not in knowledge, not in talent, but in emotional discipline. When you control your reactions, you control your reality. And from that point on, every interaction happens on your terms. Once your inner world is stable, you begin to notice something unsettling about the outer world. Power does not move the way people claim it does. It doesn't flow through fairness, honesty, or good intentions. It flows through perception, through timing, through what is shown, and more importantly, what is hidden. This is where many intelligent people make fatal mistakes. They assume clarity earns trust. They believe transparency earns respect. They think being open protects them. In reality, openness without strategy makes you exposed. and exposure invites interference. The fourth ruthless lesson is simple but uncomfortable: never reveal your full intentions. The moment people know exactly what you want, they adjust their behavior around it. Some will support you, many will obstruct you, others will subtly redirect you for their own benefit. Intention, once exposed, becomes vulnerable. Dangerously smart people move with partial visibility. They share enough to appear cooperative, but never enough to be predictable. They understand that mystery is not deception, it is protection. When your direction is unclear, others cannot easily block you, rush you, or manipulate your decisions. Uncertainty keeps your options open. This is not about lying, it is about timing. Truth revealed too early becomes a liability. Goals spoken too soon attract opinions, doubts, and interference. Silence allows momentum to build without resistance. Progress made quietly is harder to stop. The fifth lesson is where many well-meaning people get hurt. Kindness without boundaries invites exploitation. Kindness is powerful, but only when paired with limits. Without limits, it becomes permission. Permission to take more, permission to disrespect, permission to return less. Human psychology is brutal in this way. People do not value what is freely given without consequence. They may enjoy it, but they rarely respect it. When generosity has no edge, it gets tested. When patience has no end, it gets pushed. Dangerously smart people are kind, but they are not endlessly available. They help, but they don't rescue. They give, but they don't drain themselves dry. They understand that every yes teaches others how to treat them, and every unprotected kindness sets a precedent. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They allow the right people closer and keep the wrong ones at a distance. When you enforce boundaries calmly, without anger or explanation, something powerful happens. People adjust. Some leave, others rise to meet you. Either way, your energy stops leaking. The sixth lesson cuts even deeper. People respect strength more than explanations. This is difficult to accept because many people believe being understood is the goal. They over-explain their decisions. They justify their boundaries. They argue to prove their point. But explanation often signals doubt. Strength doesn't argue. Strength decides. Strength acts and lets reality speak. When you constantly explain yourself, you invite negotiation. When you stand firm without emotional charge, you establish authority. This does not mean becoming rigid or arrogant. It means trusting your judgment enough to stop seeking validation. The moment you no longer need approval, your presence changes. People feel it. They may not like it, but they sense it. Perception shapes reality. If you appear unsure, people test you. If you appear solid, people adapt. This is not about intimidation. It is about consistency. When your actions align with your boundaries, you become reliable, and reliability commands respect more than words ever could. At this level, you begin to see society differently. You notice how often people perform goodness to hide weakness, how often they use morality to mask fear. You realize that real strength is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. Dangerously smart people do not try to control others. They control themselves so well that others naturally adjust. They don't chase influence. Influence follows their stability. They don't seek power. Power emerges from their restraint. Once you understand how power truly moves, you stop being shocked by human behavior. You stop feeling betrayed by reality. You accept the rules without resentment and operate within them with clarity. This is the shift from innocence to realism. Not bitterness, not cynicism, just awareness. And awareness, once gained, cannot be undone. With realism comes emotional immunity. Once you stop expecting the world to operate on fairness alone, you stop feeling personally wounded by its patterns. This is where the final ruthless lessons take shape, not as defenses, but as internal armor. The seventh lesson is one most people resist. At first expect betrayal, and you'll never be controlled by shock. This does not mean living in suspicion or bitterness. It means understanding human nature without illusion. People act in alignment with their interests, their fears, and their unresolved insecurities. Loyalty exists, but it is rare and conditional. When you accept this calmly, disappointment loses its power over you. Betrayal hurts most when it surprises you. When you place people on pedestals, when you assume shared values guarantee shared behavior. The dangerously smart person does not romanticize trust. They build it slowly, they test it quietly, and they never give someone access before observing consistency over time. This mindset creates emotional stability. When someone leaves, switches sides, or reveals hidden intentions, it no longer shatters you. You adapt without drama. You adjust without rage. You move forward without needing closure. That alone makes you mentally untouchable. The eighth lesson is subtle but transformative. Your presence should be felt even in your absence. Most people disappear and are forgotten. Others leave a vacuum. The difference is intention. The dangerously smart person does not cling. They do not overstay. They do not make themselves constantly available. Scarcity creates value. Distance creates respect. When you step back at the right time, people reflect. They reassess. They notice what changed. This is not manipulation. It is self-regulation. It is knowing when your energy is no longer being valued and choosing to withdraw it with dignity. Absence reveals truth. It shows who reaches out, who adjusts, and who replaces you without thought. And that information is priceless. It tells you where you stand without confrontation, without questions, without emotional labor. People fear distance because they fear being forgotten. But the truth is, constant presence often breeds invisibility. When you are always there, your value fades into the background. When you know when to step away, your presence gains weight. This does not mean isolating yourself. It means controlling access, choosing when to engage, choosing when to retreat. Strategic distance protects your energy and sharpens your impact. Together, these lessons form a quiet armor. You stop being emotionally reactive. You stop being easily surprised. You stop being dependent on outcomes or approval. You move with calm certainty, grounded in self-trust rather than external validation. At this stage, life feels different. Conflict loses its intensity. People's behavior feels less personal. You no longer chase understanding from those committed to misunderstanding you. You conserve your energy for what truly matters. Dangerous intelligence is not loud. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't announce its presence. It is calm under pressure. It is composed in uncertainty. It is unbothered by chaos. Most people exhaust themselves trying to control outcomes. The dangerously smart focus on controlling their response. And that shift changes everything. You become harder to provoke, harder to manipulate, harder to derail, not because you are stronger than others, but because you are clearer. Clarity creates freedom. Freedom creates confidence, and confidence, when rooted in self-mastery, becomes unshakable. This is what it means to be untouchable, not invincible, not perfect, but stable. And in a world driven by emotional volatility, stability is the rarest form of power. Stability changes how you see yourself. Once you are no longer pulled by every emotion or shaken by every outcome, a deeper shift begins. You stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to be understood. You stop trying to prove that you are good, capable, or worthy. You simply become grounded. And that grounding is where the real transformation happens. This is where many people misunderstand the word ruthless. They imagine aggression, coldness, or domination. But ruthlessness in this context is clarity. It is the refusal to lie to yourself. It is the courage to see reality without filters. And that clarity frees you from habits that once drained you. You realize that not everyone deserves access to you. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves a response. You begin choosing your actions instead of reacting to circumstances. And that choice creates a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation. Growth at this level often feels lonely, not because you are above others, but because you are no longer moving at the same emotional pace. You notice how often people seek chaos, drama, and reassurance. You see how many conversations are driven by insecurity rather than truth, and you feel less compelled to participate. This loneliness is not emptiness, it is space. Space to think clearly, space to act deliberately, space to build something meaningful without constant interference. Most people avoid this space because it forces self-reflection, but those who embrace it gain direction. You begin applying these lessons quietly. You don't announce boundaries, you enforce them. You don't threaten distance. You create it when necessary. You don't explain your silence. You let it speak. And over time, people adjust their behavior around you, or they remove themselves. Both outcomes are victories. You stop trying to change people. You understand that behavior is information. You let people show you who they are, then you decide how close they stand. This removes frustration. It removes resentment. It removes the endless cycle of hope and disappointment. Dangerous intelligence is calm. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't beg. It knows that time reveals everything. When you move with patience, you see opportunities others miss. You avoid traps others fall into. You make decisions from clarity instead of pressure. At this stage, success stops being loud. It becomes precise. You choose environments carefully. You choose alliances selectively. You invest energy where there is respect, not just familiarity. You understand that alignment matters more than popularity. You also accept responsibility fully. No blaming circumstances, no blaming people, no waiting for fairness. You adapt, you adjust, you move forward. This responsibility is not heavy, it is empowering. Because once you accept it, nothing external controls your progress. Your presence changes. You speak less, but when you do, people listen. You move slower, but your actions carry weight. You don't need to dominate rooms. You shift them subtly, and those who are perceptive feel it immediately. This is the dangerous path, not dangerous to others, but dangerous to illusions, dangerous to manipulation, dangerous to systems that rely on emotional weakness. It is the path of self-mastery, and it demands discipline. The reward is not applause, it is peace. Not comfort, but confidence. Not approval, but autonomy. You stop needing permission to be yourself. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop fearing loss because you trust your ability to rebuild. That trust is unbreakable. When life challenges you now, you don't collapse. You respond. When people test you, you don't react. You observe. When opportunities appear, you don't hesitate from fear. You act with intention. This is what it means to be dangerously smart, calm in chaos, silent in strategy, firm in values, flexible in action. Most people never reach this level because it requires honesty with oneself. But once you do, there is no going back. You don't become harder, you become clearer. And clarity, applied consistently, changes the trajectory of your entire life.